Right, so we are talking about Inside the Dragon's Den. So we're going to talk about the hottest topics facing the industry right now, advice on approaching investors, common reasons why investors reject projects and teams, and how to get a positive reaction from investors. So let's get started. Could each of you introduce yourselves and sort of talk a bit summary of the specific types of funding you're involved with?
Hello?
Yeah.
So my name is AlSaleh. I work with STV. STV is a VC fund based in Saudi. We have $500 million under management, and we tend to, as mentioned in the panel or in the talks earlier, we look for companies that have potential to go to 10x, like large scale. My role specifically, I work with the investment team, and I lead the gaming thread.
My name is Laith Al-Qasem. I'm CEO of the innovative startup and small and medium enterprise fund, the Issf in Jordan. It's a fund that is owned by the World Bank and the Central Bank of Jordan. We invest in technology companies in general. Only two areas we don't invest in. We don't invest in construction. We don't invest in heavy industry. We look for companies that have export potential, job creation potential, and 10 to 12x exits.
Yeah, I'm Pieter from Pijl. I'm one of the three partners at a London-based company called Triple Dragon. We are a specialized games investment and finance company. We're not a venture capital firm. Most of the investments that we do are loans that we provide to game publishers, game developers, in order to help them sort of like scale their games, so mostly financing marketing and user acquisition budgets. We also do, on a limited scale, project financing, and very, very exceptionally, we've announced one last week. We do some studio investments, but we have to be absolutely in love with it. So our core business is lending, not sort of like studio investment.
Hi, I'm Sean from Wargaming. I'm the token Asian on this panel to make it more international. Wargaming is a game developer and publisher actually based out of Cyprus, which is very nearby, but with 20 offices around the world. Although we're a game developer and publisher, we've found a lot of success with some of our games, and we're really making a conscious effort to invest back in the community. So we invest very heavily in our industry in terms of studios and various technology companies that operate in our space. Unlike some other firms, because we like to believe we have some expertise in making games and publishing games, we are more comfortable with risk. So we're happier to engage with and interact with and invest behind companies that may be earlier in their growth cycle, even pre-revenues, pre-profits. Those are comfortable for us.
Right, so I've got lots of questions. If anyone has a question at any time, just put your hand up, but I will go through my questions unless you have one, and I would much rather hear from you guys, so please chip in. So what sort of companies have each of you funded recently? Specific examples are great, but what I really want to understand is the kind of companies that you've invested in, what sort of things you're interested in.
Sure, so as I mentioned, we're a VC fund, we're sector agnostic. We haven't made... Is this working? Yeah. Okay. We haven't made any gaming investments quite yet, but we invested in Kareem. We invested in Noon Academy, which is an education platform. We invested in Proof, which is an advertising enabler. And we have a couple of investments in other different sectors like media and healthcare. I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with Visita. So our companies are usually startups. They're in their growth stage. They established great unit economics in a market, and they're trying to scale either within the same country or across the region.
The ISSF has made 3 investments, two in companies and 1 in a VC fund. We act as a fund of funds and a venture capital fund. One of the companies we invested in is a company called Little Thinking Minds. It's an e-education company. And the other one is an e-commerce company and design company called Mikal. The fund that we invested in is Oasis 500 OV2, Oasis Ventures 2 here.
As I mentioned, most of our investments are loans, and we don't disclose those. But our studio investment, I can tell you a little bit more about that. That's an investment in a Danish studio called Invisible Walls. And the reason why we invested in them was, we really love the team and we love the product because they have a clear vision of making a game that is really a different and really innovative kind of game genre. So they're doing what they call sort of like social strategy-based game, PC, console, multiplayer, all with all the gameplay sort of like developed around proximity-based voice chat, which is really fun to play. I've tested it, and give it a year and you'll be able to play it.
Unrelated, I really hate boring talks and I hate boring panels, so just jump up, raise questions. It's not a big group, so I think an interactive conversation would be a lot more fun. We're in the interactive entertainment industry. It would be silly for us to have a monologue sitting up here in the front. Having said that, I can give you two examples of the kinds of investments we make at Wargaming. One is a studio we acquired in London. They were formerly called Edge Case Games. They made a spaceship combat battle free-to-play experience, which was cool. Wasn't very successful, but they made a great attempt as a team. We really loved their heart, and so we acquired them to have them work together with Wargaming on a bigger project. So we're currently building up that studio. It's been rebranded as Wargaming London, hiring if anybody wants a job. We're hiring there. Another studio is unannounced, but we've actually made a couple of investments into them. They're a rising star AAA studio that is still quite small. You will hear about them in the coming year or two, based out of California. Rockstar team consisting of members from Blizzard and Riot and whatnot. You'll see their game announced next week. It'll be a big announcement, and they're going to be a flagship title for the upcoming new console generation. We like these two kinds of teams because the first team is really a team that's super hungry, may not have delivered success, but we feel there is a synergy we can find with them. That's why we believe in that partnership and we go invest behind them. The second company, they're just amazing on their own. So we invest behind them because we believe in their independent ability to find success, but we're always there to try to help them if they seek help.
Thank you. So obviously you're all looking to make a financial return, and hopefully all your investments will, or funding will, but what is it, is there other criteria that you have that you're interested in? You know, what is it apart from making money that makes you want to engage? And are there other criteria that you specifically have that you have to look for? I mean, we're a VC fund, so eventually, at the end of the day, we have fiduciary responsibility to return money to our LPs. Uniquely, STV, our LP is STC. So STC is the biggest telecommunication company in Saudi. So there is very clear strategic element in looking into gaming. So that could be one potential non-monetary return that both the gaming company, us, and hopefully the gaming community in the region can benefit from. But VC funds really care about returns.
The ISSF, because we are a VC fund, but we have somewhat of a developmental mandate. So employment creation is very important, and gaming is an interesting vertical to look at because it integrates a variety of different components: storytelling, graphics, animation, interactivity, music, things of that sort. So that we find that to be very interesting because it goes into multiple other sectors. We also look for the ability to generate jobs for women. And as I said, gaming is also very interesting to us because of the fact that it crosses borders easily and can create exports. And from a developmental aspect for Jordan, this is something that's very important to us.
We're fairly pragmatic, I must admit. We don't care that much about the game genre or sort of like platform type. Although the reality is there's so many more sort of like game developers asking for funding than that there's sort of like funding available in the market. So as a rule, we do have a rule. We'll play every game that we fund, and if we don't like it, we don't fund it. I mean, that's sort of like as far as we would go.
You have a good job. The thing I personally look for when we're looking for investments or companies invest in is I'm looking for drinking buddies. So if they like to drink, that gives you an edge in terms of getting an investment. You think I'm joking? No, but actually, having said that, we do like to build friendships in a meaningful way. It's partly personal, but professionally, I think any developers, the relationship you have with each other and with any partner is critically important in our industry because we're not dealing with like machinery and factories and it doesn't matter whether person A or person B does it. It matters a ton whether person A is there or person B is there. So from that perspective, although I was kind of joking about the drinking part, we do need to build extremely lasting personal and professional relationships with all the people that we invest in. And in some ways, going back to what you said, we almost don't care as much about the individual project or the game or the genre as much as our conviction behind the person or the group of people that's behind that company.
I'd like to add to what you said.
The drinking?
No. No, I leave that to you. No, but to try to make this more interactive one. But one of the things that we look at is not just the technical competency of the people, but also their willingness to develop management teams around themselves. A lot of the companies that we look at are very heavily technical, and they're very good maybe at developing product, but not very good at going into the business aspect of it. And we think that for the longevity and the longevity of the company or in the investment, because venture capital companies make their money on exit, so they have to have something of value when they leave, and that value is unlikely to be only technical. So it has to be technical and the creation of an institution. So I think this is something you should be thinking about very seriously.
Any questions yet? Oh, yeah, we've got one over there. Can we get the microphone? Thank you.
Yay!
Yay!
Hi. So I'm from Saudi Arabia. We are considered new to the gaming industry. So I've noticed that there's a lot of game developers that are making games by themselves solely, as they are still learning. So I find like it's an obstacle to get an investment because, you know, there's no team. And do you ever also give help a solo developer to find, partners to make games?
If I can have a first shot. Yes, we do. I mean, we see lots of projects, games, and studios that are really, really early, and some of them are just too early. We'll say, well, it's too early, but maybe go talk to him or her publisher or another developer who can help. And that's one thing that you will find in the games industry. People are a lot more open to help, call it competitors, than in any other industry. So yes, we sort of like send people on or help them. I was about to say, when are there questions, we don't bite. People in the industry are really easy to approach. So if you have questions, don't want to ask them here, find us later at one of the drinks or the parties or whatever. Because helping developers early on is very, very important. And likewise, if developers are looking for, we're trying to do a game, but we don't really quite know how to do it, come talk to us, because we also have sort of like, call it side projects, where we have games that we're doing a port or a reskin, and we'd like to get some new developers involved. I mean, those could be very suitable for like call it first-timers. And as Sean was saying, there's always companies hiring, so always have a chat, and that's the best way to help.
Oh, it also depends on the level of financing that you're getting. If you're dealing with very early people, very early funding, angel funding, you will get some money to be able to develop your product. But as you go through progressively more advanced stages of funding, okay, you need to the funders, I think, need to get more involved in helping you develop an institution. And one of the things that we're doing at the ISSF is we're trying to differentiate between stupid money and smart money, because stupid money will give you money and they won't do it. They'll come to you after 12 months and ask you what you have done. Smart money will give you the money and say, we think you need to fix this, you need to work on this, you need to work on this, you need to work on this. At the end of the day, what you develop is not the technical part. Really will probably be less than 30% of the value of the company. It's the ability of the company to continually grow, develop new products and whatever. And all of these are managerial capabilities, not technical. It starts technical, but your company evolves very quickly into an institution that has to have structure and management and discipline and things like that. And that's where the value of the company actually gets derived as you become more mature.
Actually, I just realized I'm in Jordan. I meant drinking tea when I said drinking buddies. Just for the record, for the camera, I want to clarify that. Shisha as well. Actually, to your question specifically, and I'll make a general statement, but specifically to you, I think you have a significant advantage being a developer out of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is an amazing market. As a single country, it's an amazing market. The GCC markets are growing. It's super interesting, even for more international developers and publishers. Don't obsess over wanting to be the next Supercell, wanting to make a game that's going to entertain everybody in the world. I don't think that's an echelon that is very difficult, nor should you necessarily aspire to be that. If you can be king of your hill in Saudi Arabia or GCC, you can be a billion-dollar company. I was talking to Jeff over there, leading company ByteDance, TikTok. You should go. I'll talk to him after this. I was telling him Saudi Arabia is an amazing market. I call it the Japan of the Middle East, Japan of GCC, in the sense of the size of the market, the revenues per users, the engagement, the conversion. It's an incredible market. If you're talking to me as an investor, if you came to me with a pitch of, I have this amazing game that's going to appeal to the GCC markets or Saudi Arabia, that would be super interesting for me, as opposed to, oh, this is another Clash Royale copy that I'm going to try to go fight with Supercell over, if that makes sense. I want 10% if you do that.
Any other questions from the audience yet? Oh, yep. This is the easiest panel I've ever hosted.
Hello. Okay. Hello. Before you decide to invest in a game, you need to see a prototype, a part of the game. Typically, how large is this part of the game?
I'll go first. I don't think there's a formula per se. We've invested behind almost literally a back of the napkin concept. This is what we're going to do. And to be fair, it's because we believe in the team behind it. Sometimes it's a very elaborate, playable vertical slice, and we still don't invest because we don't have the necessary conviction behind it. So there's no formula, but I think you're asking, the underlying question you're trying to ask, I'll give an answer to, is if possible, within the constraints of your time, I would encourage you to have early conversations with all possible publishers and investors to the extent your time allows. Initial relationship building, keeping them updated on the progress you're making, showing them the bits and pieces that you have, promising them something that, for example, we'll have a playable in 3 months, reaching back to them proactively and say, by the way, I told you we're going to have a playable in 3 months. Here, if you have a chance, please take a look. These kinds of ongoing dialogues are probably the best way to build bridges, build relationships, and ultimately get the funding or publishing that you would need.
For Triple Dragon, we would like to see something that is playable, at least sort of like early stage. So and the reason for that's really, really simple. We want to see that the team can deliver a solid product. Also, we want to sort of like see the game. Do we like it? Do we think people want to play this? And also it gives you sort of like the opportunity to sort of like test it on players, get some really early feedback. If you're earlier stage and you have an idea, as Sean said, I would say do reach out to investors and publishers if it's about a concept. Because what we also see very, very often, sadly, is we see so many projects that are playable or even completed, and I would have sort of preferred that they would have come to us sort of like 12 months earlier. We want to make a game in this genre, and if we would have asked the question, well, who do you think your target audience is? They would have said, well, A, B, C. And why are you meshing this and this type of gameplay? I mean, we see a lot of sort of like confused concepts, unfortunately. That's the harsh reality. So I would say, if you have an idea, try to test it on people from within the industry. Do they think it has mileage? They may be completely wrong. They may sort of be overseeing the next sort of like Candy Crush, but they will also be able to flag up a few things that will probably not work. And that can be very valuable information because it will save you a lot of time and money and energy that you can sort of like focus on the next big thing.
Yeah, I guess like from our point of view, we really look into growth stage companies. So by then, we like to look at the metrics, monetization, sustainability, but also like the forecast and like based on previous performance, how can that translate into even better future results? So probably post prototype stage.
At very early stage development, you're not only showing the idea of the game, but you're also showing the holistic, the complete capacity of the team to put something together. So even if that game doesn't work, if it is really good, then people will know that you can do something else if you get the idea right. So when you market it, it's not just the game that you're marketing, you're also marketing the team that you have with you, because we as ISSF invest in a team, in a company, not in a single product.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Yep. Oh, two, right. There first.
Hello, thank you all. I want to ask you, Mr. Laith, what support does ISSF offers for female game developers? Since you said you are supporting women, and how can it help Arabic content making about games on internet? And do you have, can you offer for them accelerators or mentors to help them to move to next stages in their work? Thank you.
These are very good questions. The first two investments we made are women-owned companies. So the first two companies we invested in are owned and managed by women. Okay, but they have to be of a specific size. The funds that we invest in, we're a fund of funds, so 90% of our investments go to create new funds in Jordan. So from here till the end of 2023, we have to have created between 9 and 12 new funds that will do this. And women are as competent as men, and in many cases, or maybe men are sometimes as competent as women. When you're asking about what support do, we don't give direct support to women. We would consider investing in a company if it is what they call post-minimum viable product, which means that you have sales and you're looking for money to expand. So whether you're women-owned or men-owned doesn't make a difference. But you have to have that profile. And part of the funding that we have available, we have funding that is going to something which we call Enhanced Entrepreneurship Development Program, where we give what they call investment readiness training for people. This is being done with iPark in Jordan. And we have something called BDS service provision, which is we will subsidize and pay for consulting, maybe IP registration, things like this through iPark. That's one thing that's open to all entrepreneurs. There is a quota that I think 35% of the people that go through investment readiness training should be women. So there is that. We also have money allocated for supporting incubators and accelerators. So if there are any incubators or accelerators that want to focus on gaming, if that incubator or accelerator comes and talks to us and asks for some sort of monetary support, we might be able to do that as well. But nothing specifically for women entrepreneur development. It's through things that we have to create.
Thank you.
I think there was another question here. Yeah.
So if I provided everything that you needed from me to invest or have me as an investment, how long would that take to get the approval or to start the actual investment?
As we're lenders, in our case, it can be sort of like start to finish anywhere between sort of like, I would say, 3 to 5 weeks. Equity investors will take longer, but that's understandable. So yeah, that's our process. Also, we're 3 partners. If 2 like it, we'll do it. But that's how we work.
Yeah, this is a really good question. I guess the talk before this mentioned the steps of VC funding specifically. So the process is we meet the founders. If the company is the right profile and if it's the right fit, we move to the due diligence stage, which can take a long time depending on the company, depending on the industry, because like my background, like I'm not a game developer, so it takes time to kind of understand your business, understand the market, and understand the defensibility, the moat, and even like work with the founders on thinking of the long term. So that can take a little bit longer.
Please go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say I realized you cannot pronounce Laith's organization halfway through and pause. It would sound very weird. Sorry. No, all I was going to say was similar to my answer previously. There's no defined cookie cutter thing. I think generally any competitive investor will want to be as quickly, process it as quickly as they can. Sometimes it's literally a 1-hour conversation and decision can be made. And sometimes after the initial conversation, it could be many, many months until some kind of either decision or action is taken. So there's really no defined answer. But I think that's what you should walk into it in terms of don't be frustrated when things don't move as fast as you think they are, because all of these people here are looking through hundreds of investment opportunities every year. So have patience, don't be impatient. Try to think from the perspective of the investors and what they're coming from. But what I would say from a tactical advice is do inform the people you are talking to about your timeline. For example, you need funding by this specific period because there's something specific concrete that you need by then. Or somebody already put a term sheet in front of you, and it would be nice of you to inform the other people, by the way, just letting you know, I have a term sheet that is in front of me. If you could kind of expedite your process, that would be helpful. Those are always helpful guidelines.
Yeah, actually, I might add to this one. I've raised investment and seen a lot, and I think the fastest I've seen equity investment done is 5 weeks from first meeting to signing, as in the money being in the bank. The longest I've seen is under 2 years, but more than 18 months. And I think when we get people coming to us, like we always ask about the timeline. If somebody says less than 3 months, I get a bit nervous in the sense of I'm not sure that we can I'm not totally confident that we'll be able to do that. If they say 6 months, then I tend to think, okay, this is like a reasonable timeline that, just to give you some idea.
And also it will make investors a bit nervous if you sort of like start approaching them 2 months before you run out of money, because it's not sort of like the best sign of commercial talent. I mean, you would want to invest in someone who thinks ahead a little bit longer than that?
In our case, we've mapped it out. There are certain things that we need to have for us to make an investment, but assuming that we have everything that we need, we think it will take 3 to 4 months. One of the most important things that we require is we do not lead investments. So you have to come to us with a lead investor, and what we do is we only validate the due diligence that they have done. And the reason we're doing that is we're trying to create a new culture of investment in Jordan by doing this, to make sure other people are going through the proper due diligence, both commercial and financial and legal. And we just sort of check the boxes, have our lawyers take a look at it. And with that said, just to give you an idea, we have 128 companies in our pipeline, only 8 of which have ticked all the boxes. So we can only look at 8, 34 of which are missing a lead investor. So we try to help them find investors, and the remainder are pre-minimum viable products, so they're too early stage for us. So we have 128 that came to speak to us, of which only 42 are things that we can look at in the medium to short term.
Yep.
Hi. Is it okay to approach multiple investors at the same time?
Yes.
That's absolutely fine.
I would
Actually, yes.
I mean, I would say
No, it is fine, and in quite a lot of cases, investors don't mind sort of like teaming up. It helps sort of like sanity checking. If we do a project financing, we'd much rather have a publisher or a co-investor on board, and same for studio investments.
Yeah.
Building on what you said, is it best practice to inform all investors of who you're talking to at the same time?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I don't think it's required to do so. If you speak to investors who are like game industry investors, quite often they will make some suggestions. Have you spoken to him or him or him? Because you may be approaching a VC whose ticket size is sort of like too high for your project, and he'll say, well, go talk to him or her. If people ask, have you spoken to someone, it's usually sort of like best practice to be sort of like open, because they're trying to help, but it's not like required to do so from the outset.
Yeah, and I guess one way to think about this is that this is all like one big partnership. So the investors are partners with the founders, and then the investors are also partners with co-investors. So for instance, STV's minimum ticket size is 5 million, but we got a lot of really, really good founders that we believe in, but just because of the fund economics, we're not able to fund, but we have the right network to say, well, this investor makes sense now, but please let's keep in touch and talk at a later stage. It's all about having a conversation, communicating, but also like collectively building a solid ecosystem where everyone can grow.
You have to be careful when you speak to different investors what their limitations are. We've had 2 companies that we've spoken to that they went and spoke to other investors. We're very happy that they were, but when they spoke to the other investors, they raised the capital round beyond what we can invest in. So then we said, I'm sorry, this has gotten too big for us. We can't invest in that. So you have to understand this.
Just a minor tactical advice I would give there is you don't have to open the kimono to everybody. I think it's, as a courtesy, you can say, by the way, we're speaking to 2 other investors. Along those lines are fine. It once again depends on your relationship. If you have a really good relationship with a particular investor, it's up to you to be open. Like, by the way, we're also talking to Fund A or Company C, right? That's totally up to you. One thing I would encourage you or strongly tell you not to do is don't play Hollywood banker. Don't be that asshole where you're like, well, that other guy said they're going to do this for us. What are you going to do for us? Like, don't be that asshole, because that turns people off. Any sophisticated, good investor will be able to see through you right away. Remember, you're the first time doing this. Other people have been doing this every day for like past many, many years, right? So don't be that Hollywood banker. The more genuine and true you can be to who you genuinely are, if you don't have a lot of business experience, just state it. Like, we're very good at technology or game design. We're just not the most savvy business people out there. Be open with that, and nobody's going to try to take advantage of you. Nobody good will try to take advantage of you.
They'll end up owning a problem if they do. Because if I invest in you for your technical skill only, it is my responsibility for my investors to help build our company, for it to start having good administration and management. And if I don't, I've contributed to your failure and my failure.
Right, we've probably got time for one or two more questions. All right, I will ask one. Right, I think actually I will ask my last question. What is the one thing that you'd like people to leave this session knowing that they might not have known before?
From my point of view, you start off technical, but you end up institutional. And I've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs who tell me that I'm in my Series B or in my Series C capital raising. And when I look at the institution, or lack of an institution, they're actually a seed for the third time or Series A for the second time. Every time you go to market to get money, when you finish it, when you finish the money and before you go for more, make sure that you can show an evolution, a positive evolution of management within your company. If you don't, then you're still in that same category. You've just spent a lot of money playing around with technology, and that's not what an investor is looking for.
I have a question for the audience. I came to Jordan for a reason, because I want to understand the market better. I've been to Dubai for some other event. Sorry. To understand the market.
We've been to Dubai for other events as well.
Understand the market better. But question to you, those of you who are from the region, what is your biggest pain point or challenge or problem as you're trying to make a name for yourself in the industry? I really genuinely hear, just shout out, like, is it like you can't meet investors, or we don't know how to reach somebody, or can you just shout out like some of your biggest problems or challenges? What do you mean? Elaborate, please.
So there are lots of maybe individual good developers, but they're individuals. They're not able to create a team that's
Too many cowboys.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There are missing gaps. So, for example, we have accelerators in Saudi. Sorry. We have accelerators in Saudi, but there is a gap between, okay, how do I go to them? So, for example, I can reach them, but I get, not necessarily me, but a lot of the people who try and pitch their projects fail when they go to an accelerator. So you have people who have projects or ideas, and you have accelerators who are looking for these people. But there is a gap of how can we communicate, or what are we missing that we can work on or put our time on. Like most of you said, that most of us has the technical part, but none of the business or anything else. And I think that's our biggest issues. How can we turn something that we're good at into a business?
I can understand that. Because just making games alone sometimes isn't enough. Sometimes you have to know how to prepare a deck. Sometimes you need to know which checkboxes to check. Sometimes you need to know what to say to an accelerator, an investor, or what not to say. I think I agree. The gap probably should be addressed through some sort of a industry association, some mentorship, some people with experience, maybe some folks from outside of the region who can come and share some of that experience. That's one way to address some of that gap.
Yeah, and then I think it's I sort of the question was a little bit like something people here on the panel trying to sort of like tell you something. I think that's not really going to help you. It's about you've got a community of talented people here in the region. Talk amongst yourselves and share information, share experiences, and I mean it's relatively easy with sort of like modern technology to do that across borders. And if I look, for example, at places like Finland, what I see there sort of like being different from other places in, say, sort of random Central Europe, they've got equal amounts of people who are sort of like well educated, can code, can do art, they can make games, but they're not sort of like talking to each other as much and working together as much as, for example, in Finland. And it's sort of like creating that open community that sort of like helps to speed things up. And it's a bit like, I mean, I'm not a complete sort of like techie, but it's like open sourcing can help, and the same is sort of like sharing your experiences can help a lot. And yeah, game associations, drinking tea in an organized manner, it definitely helps, because it's a creative process, and sharing experiences is not to be underestimated. So yeah, try to do that.
Sean, for you, one of the interesting things that we've been seeing at the ISSF is we have a variety of funds from the region coming to talk to us. So we have funds from Kuwait, we have funds from Saudi, we have funds from Dubai talking to us. They all recognize that Jordan has deep technical skills, but they also recognize that they have better management skills or more mature management. So what you'll end up finding is that a lot of startups here, once they get the product proven, and once they start getting money coming in, a lot of them go to the Gulf, where they can find people with good marketing, with good brand management issues, with good product development things, and of course it's access to a larger market. Jordan in the past 30 years has invested enormous amounts of money in technical skills and programming and engineering, and I think probably in the next 5 years you're going to start seeing a move more into management, because I think as a country we're not as strong as we should be in that area.
Not because you're here, but ISSF, efforts like this is going to make a big difference in a country like Jordan.
Right, I think we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much to the panelists and to you guys. Thank you very much.